Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are taking a monumental stack of sources. We're talking classified reports, archaeological notes, even personal journals, and we're going to carve out the insights you need.
And our mission today is, well, it's exceptionally ambitious.
It really is. We are going to the absolute fringe of known space. We're going to analyze this cascade of catastrophe that stems from resource exploitation.
We're looking at the moon of Akoshemon. And this is a place where deep space mining, forbidden genetic science, and a kind of cosmic horror all just merge into one terrifying story.
The setting is everything here, isn't it?
It absolutely dictates the entire narrative. I mean, we're not just talking about deep space, we're talking about the utter limits of the star system.
Right.
It borders what the sources pretty hauntingly call the empty void separating the galaxies.
The edge of sanity, basically.
That's a good way to put it. It's the border with this unsettling, vast, intergalactic nothingness. And it's into this environment that a small, independent crew decided to run an illegal, high-stakes operation.
Yeah, that location just immediately elevates the stakes. It's not a mere mining accident anymore. It becomes this cosmological threat. So for our deep dives, we're really focusing on how this volatile mix of greed for a mineral they call Lexium scientific arrogance and this ancient evil that, manifests through dreams, how it all culminated in just mass casualties.
And we're tracking it all right from the source material, from the initial chaos all the way to that final, pretty shocking confrontation.
So to really appreciate the danger, we have to start where the source material starts.
Exactly. Right in the immediate aftermath of a botched explosion, the opening scene is just utter chaos. It follows this badly misjudged blast set by their explosives expert, man named Chung.
Who goes by the nickname Bunny.
Money, yeah.
Yeah.
And the explosion was so powerful, the dust cloud so massive that it looked less like a controlled excavation and more like a huge natural rockfall.
And right away, that just raises a huge red flag about the whole operation, doesn't it? I mean, if they're this desperate for speed or maybe this careless with a massive explosives charge, what other kind of due diligence are they just skipping?
Well, all of it, probably.
Well.
And this character, Bunny Chung, he's a fascinating study in contradictions. He's described as broad-shouldered, possessing this truly immense physical strength. I think one source says he could literally bend iron bars with his bare hands.
But his demeanor is the opposite.
Completely. He has this surprisingly gentle, almost mournful demeanor, a walking dichotomy.
Yeah.
And you see his immense physical power right up against this intense emotional vulnerability. The documents confirm he's just visibly tormented by worry. And it's not about the explosion or even the claim.
It's about his daughter, Rosie.
It's all about Rosie. He's constantly looking at these very expensive hyperwave holograms she sends him. And in them, she's asking him to fix her stuffed toy, Kuka, whose arm has come off.
That one detail.
Yeah.
It's so powerful, this massive strength. And it's all focused on this tiny, fragile toy.
It's crucial. It tells you everything about his later actions. I mean, he's out here risking his life for money, but his heart is absolutely back home.
And the person leading this high-risk, possibly incompetent operation is Jill Stoker. She's the boss.
She's the independent operator, and she's characterized as formidable. The sources say she's tall, 6 feet, with a reputation as a tough, uncompromising independent miner.
And she's using an archaeological dig as a cover story.
A very thin cover story. Her objective is purely mercenary. She wants to strike it rich, fast, and then just disappear.
Stoker really embodies that reckless ambition of the independent class,
She does. She's running the operation fast and dirty, hoping to cash out before the major players. You're talking the Monolithic Consortium or IMC before they can even realize what she's found.
But the threat, the real threat, it makes itself known before they even find the money. And it's not a monster, it's in the mind.
And that's our nugget of intrigue. The source material handles it brilliantly by focusing on Nyssa, one of the Doctor's companions.
Right, and she's already dealing with this profound psychological trauma. She just recently witnessed the destruction of her home planet, Tegan.
So now she's experiencing this intense psychic discomfort, these recurring nightmares.
But they're not just bad dreams.
Oh no, they're very pointed, repetitive visions. Tegan collapsing, Nyssa rushing frantically through these gardens she knows, but she's paralyzed. She can't warn her parents of the disaster she knows is coming.
That sense of foreboding, of failure, it's directly linked to the setting on Akoshemon's moon.
It is. That emotional trauma is the conduit that the true enemy uses to get in.
Okay, so let's unpack that, the psychic static. because this really tells us everything about the enemy's nature right from the get-go.
It does. The TARDIS console's hypersensitive telepathic circuits, they actually blew a fuse.
Not a short circuit, it was psionic feedback.
Psionic feedback. Something was actively, aggressively trying to force its way into the ship's defense.
Through her, through Nyssa's subconscious while she slept.
Exactly. And that is the enemy's signature. It establishes that this ancient entity, whatever it is, operates on a plane of psychic corruption and mental vulnerability. It uses trauma, desperation, subconscious fear as its entry point.
It's a force that seeks not just conquest, but corruption.
It invades and influences long before it ever manifests physically.
So if the enemy's priority is corruption and influence, then this crew of miners, with all their greed and desperation, are the absolute perfect environment for it to thrive, completely undetected.
Precisely. They are completely compromised by their own desires. They're so focused on the mineral wealth that they just ignore all the environmental warnings, the spiritual warnings.
Yeah.
They mistake this psychic static for, just bad luck or stress.
And this force, it's sourced from the abysmal, bottomless, immeasurable depth of primal chaos.
And it finds a wide-open avenue through human ambition and emotional fragility.
Which is a perfect transition. Let's dig into that ambition as we move into our first section. Fortune and folly on Akoshemon's moon. The whole operation hinged on speed, stealth, and a massive payout.
Stoker's objective defines everything. She's a rogue, independent miner, and she's intentionally avoiding the massive, bureaucratic corporate structures, IMC, the consortium.
Because they have all the legal filings, the slow regulatory compliance.
And worst of all for Stoker, they impose massive taxes and royalty fees.
So her method is to use a black market tip-off. Basically, illegal classified information about a rich seam of ore.
And then mount a fast, highly clandestine operation.
So she's cutting corners on every conceivable level, legal, logistical, safety, just to guarantee she strikes it rich before the major operators can even catch wind of the claim and snatch it right out from under her nose.
Right. Her urgency isn't just about maximizing profit. It's about survival in this brutal economic landscape where the little guys, the independents, are constantly preyed upon by corporate giants.
And that urgency explains why she'd risk using someone like Bunny Chung, despite the massive, almost reckless force of his explosives.
The archaeological dig cover story was thin, very thin, especially when you consider the crew were hauling Army surplus-controlled gravity bombs and high explosives.
The whole pretense falls apart pretty quickly, though. It only lasts until the doctor offers to fix their faulty spectron analyzer.
And once that analyzer is fixed, the true prize is revealed. And it is astonishing. They don't just find a seam, they find a huge seam of Lexium.
Okay, so for you listening, we really need to stress why Lexium is worth risking your life and a potential prison sentence on the absolute edge of the galaxy.
Lexium is described as the rarest, most fashionable commodity. In this starfaring age, Lexium is the core component for high-density, damage-resistant starship plating.
So military vessels, high-speed civilian ships.
Exactly. It's incredibly strong, it's lightweight, and you need very little of it to provide incredible structural integrity.
Which means its black market value is astronomical. Because the consortium and IMC, they heavily control the legitimate supply.
So for this small, independent crew, discovering a huge seam means instant, undeniable wealth. The source material knows the atmosphere just shifts completely. It's all fortune and glory.
The profits from this one trip could genuinely make them all pretty damn comfortable for the rest of their lives.
Yes. Retirement is suddenly within reach. They're giddy with excitement. They completely forget the chaos of the explosion, the grim setting, the psychic discomfort.
But Stoker didn't just bring along explosives experts and miners. She also hired a local expert. And he offers the first clear, non-negotiable warning.
That would be Vega Gel. He's a vegan, a species that humans often, dismissively call mole men.
But they're renowned throughout the galaxy. They're the absolute gold standard for mining engineers and expert potholers.
But Jail, he introduces this layer of spherical context that the humans just write off as superstition.
His belief system, it revolves around the Vega vinculum.
Right, and for the vegans, this isn't just a cultural tradition. It's an inextricable, almost physical connection to the soil and the deep forces that govern the land.
So he doesn't just believe the place is bad. He feels the corruption in the rock itself.
He's a living seismograph of spiritual disturbance. And that distinction is crucial. He's not making a moral judgment based on some old folklore. He's reporting a sensory reality.
And because of the vinculum, he is constantly issuing these dire warnings, insisting this is a bad place.
He says he can sense evil around us, living in the rock, waiting for its chance to strike.
And the environment itself just screams confirmation of his fears. The planet Akoshemon, the one hanging in the void above them, it's infamous.
It's this bloated, swirling mass of scarlet and black, and it's synonymous across the entire sector with endless cruelty, death, and toxicity. It's covered in putrescent lichen. The sources say it looks like nothing natural or good could exist there.
It's a planet that radiates torment.
And Jael's sensitivity is so acute that at one point, when the doctor tries to question him about the vinculum, Jael physically collapses. He's just overwhelmed by the sheer force of death and total, unremitting darkness radiating from the moon.
That is not a subtle warning. That's the environment literally fighting back.
But despite the excitement over the Alexium, the real clue that their future wealth was secondary to an immediate danger. It surfaces when Bunny's blast finally settles.
They find a door.
An ancient-looking, oddly placed metal door, recessed into the rock wall. And the miners, they just assume it's an ancient crypt belonging to the planet's former long-dead inhabitants.
But the doctor, using his knowledge in the spectron analysis, he immediately debunks that ancient theory.
Right. He notes the corrosion level on the metal. It indicates it is no more than a century old, possibly two.
So this isn't millennia-old archaeology. This is a recent, deliberate cover-up of human activity.
And here's the definitive signal. The thing that tells you they've moved from a mining crisis to a true crisis of scientific consequence.
The door is locked from the inside.
Exactly. Which proves that the moon holds a dangerous secret related to a recent sealed event. The archaeological dig suddenly becomes true, but not in the way they thought.
It's a history that the human miners, driven by their greed for Lexium, never, ever wanted to find.
And if Stoker's greed was the fuse, then this locked door is absolutely the ignition switch.
Which brings us right into Section 2, uncovering the scientific folly of Ravis Oldman. They abandon the Lexium seam, just for a moment, to pursue this new mystery.
They follow the access point, and the structure they find is jarringly synthetic. It's all set against these natural rock caverns. The walls are perfectly straight, machined.
And they lead into a small observation chamber and then a much larger, fully functional laboratory.
And even after decades of being sealed, the electronic locks are still live, which means there's a functional operational power source still running.
The atmosphere must have been instantly chilling.
Oh, completely. You have humming computers, still glowing monitors. It creates this sense of recent interrupted work, not long abandoned ruins.
But the immediate shock, the thing that stops the crew cold, is the discovery in the lower chamber.
5 humanoid corpses.
And these are not skeletal remains, which is what you'd expect after decades.
No, they're withered husks, just dried out and mummified. And the doctor, he kneels among the cadavers and conducts a quick post-mortem right there in situ, trying to figure out the nature of the killer.
And his findings are immediate and, well, profoundly disturbing. The cause of death was acute and chronic blood loss.
The victims weren't starved or poisoned, they were completely dried out, which resulted in practically instant mummification.
The fact that the decay level is negligible means that whatever killed them, it didn't just drain their lifeblood, it preserved them by dehydrating them at this terrifying speed.
They were simply sucked dry.
That speed suggests an incredibly efficient biological mechanism at work, something designed for rapid collection, not just slow consumption.
And the lab's stated mission, according to the archived records they find, was research into suspended animation techniques.
Right. Cryogenics, stasis fields, slow time envelopes, the quest for longevity.
They find a personnel list. 6 names. With 5 bodies accounted for, that confirms one person is missing. Technician Ravis Oldman.
And Tegan, one of the companions, she immediately speculates that Oldman might have been the killer, that he sealed the lab and fled.
But the doctor, he pieces together the lab's focus on stasis and suggests the obvious answer. They start searching for stasis units.
And they find him.
They find him in a wide, cylindrical, sort of rudimentary stasis tank, preserved in this murky green gel, looking like an ancient, withered human.
The moment Oldman is revived, though, the real danger surfaces. He looks ancient, but he's technically alive. And he immediately starts grasping, spluttering, demanding neuroelectrin.
And this specific detail for you listening, this is a giant flag. Neuroelectrin is a powerful synthetic drug. It's legitimately used in the controlled resuscitation from deep suspended animation.
It's meant to reverse and stabilize synaptic decay, to prevent irreversible mental illness and psychosis.
It's a necessary stabilizer for complex brains coming out of decades-long stasis. But the doctor, He recognizes the intensity of Oldman's demand. He realizes this is already moving past therapy and into...
addiction. Dependency.
Exactly. He later refuses to give him continuous doses because he knows the risks. Oldman's need for this drug is established as the central, defining physiological imperative of his post-stasis life. He's resurrected, but he's immediately reliant.
There's a lot of irony there. A man preserved in the quest for longevity is now functionally defined by a synthesized chemical dependency.
And when they press him for answers, Oldman finally drops the pretense of being a mere technician.
He admits he's a professor and a renowned expert in gene manipulation.
Yeah, and his confession. It just reveals the staggering depths of the scientific arrogance that led to the death of the 5 personnel. Professor Garandel, one of the other names on the list, insisted they used genetic material taken directly from Akoshemon's surface.
From the rocks and minerals, to create a new life form.
The goal was breathtakingly reckless. They wanted to imbue this genetically engineered creature with the notorious longevity of the planet's former ancient inhabitants.
They completely ignored the fact that Akoshemon is universally known as a byword for depravity and wickedness of every kind, that it's associated with continuous war and self-destruction.
Even Stoker, the hardened independent miner, is appalled. She points out the planet is literally covered in toxic mud and has a history of endemic cruelty.
But Garandel ignored all of that. He ignored the moral and environmental reputation and focused only on the single physical trait he craved: eternal life.
And that is the critical thematic point. It's scientific folly. The quest for eternal life, divorced from any ethical or environmental framework, leads directly to the creation of eternal death.
Oldman admits he realized too late that they had created a monster that killed the entire staff.
They used a known corrupt source, the very essence of Akoshemon, and were somehow shocked when the outcome was pure, focused evil.
So the monster is a bioengineered creation. It's a product of human hubris, not some spontaneously generated demon.
But this creation served a higher power, which leads us right into Section 3. The Bloodhunter, the Betrayal, and the Void's Origin.
The creature they unleashed is dubbed the Bloodhunter. It's derived from the abominations native to Akoshemon, but it's been perfectly optimized by Oldman's genetic science.
The description is chilling. It's squat, dwarf-like, with pale flesh and a cluster of malevolent, blood-red eyes.
It's the mechanics of its feeding that are truly horrific, though.
It is. The source material notes the creature's most terrifying feature is this mass of glistening, writhing tubes that extend from its body, designed for immediate and efficient blood siphoning.
Oldman was right. It's an incredible biological machine, engineered purely for blood collection.
And the death toll just accelerates the moment Oldman's confession is finished. Vega Jail, the vegan who tried so desperately to warn them all, is the first of Stoker's crew to be fully sucked dry.
His deep connection to the Vega Vinculum might have made him an ideal target.
Perhaps, because of his pure spiritual energy. Shortly after, 2 more of the men, Nick and Jim Boyd, are found. Jim is seen literally shrinking as the creature feeds, sucking his lifeblood with terrifying speed.
So the Bloodhunter isn't just killing for survival, it's engaging in industrial-scale collection. Which raises the question, why? Why does it need so much blood, so fast?
Right. It's not just sustaining itself for 160 years of genetically induced longevity. Something else is going on.
And this escalating violence and death? It pushes Bunny Chung to his ultimate breaking point.
We've already established his primary motivation is paternal. He's haunted by those hyperwave holograms of Rosie, asking him to fix Kuka's arm. And he realizes that staying for the Lexium claim is a death sentence.
This is where we see him transform. He goes from being a reckless miner to a sacrificial father.
He makes the ultimate decision. He sacrifices Stoker's claim to save his own life and the lives of the remaining crew. He transmits a desperate mayday signal via the hypernet,
knowing exactly what the consequences will be.
He knows the powerful consortium will intercept that signal and respond. And their arrival means Stoker loses her illegal claim, but it guarantees an end to this clandestine operation and forces a rescue.
It's an act of betrayal against Stoker's greed, but it's an act of profound loyalty to his daughter and to the very concept of survival.
And he pays an immediate, devastating price for that choice. During the Bloodhunter's next attack, the creature latches onto him, trying to drain his immense body.
In the struggle, Bunny's arm is violently torn off,
revealing its true nature. It was the state-of-the-art bionic replacement.
He had lost his original arm years ago in an explosives accident, and that detail It retroactively explains all his superhuman feats.
Exactly. His ability to bend iron bars with his bare hands, his supernormal dexterity. Remember when he was juggling a torch, sonic keys, a wrench, a beer can, and a flick knife?
Handling the sharp blade perfectly.
It wasn't natural strength. It was technical, high-powered engineering compensating for a tragic loss.
So his strength was an artifact of desperation, not a gift. It also highlights the extreme lengths he went to hide his weakness.
Maintaining that formidable persona while dealing with immense emotional strain and physical dependency. But his sacrifice succeeds. It brings the consortium to the moon, just like he intended.
Captain Lawrence and his second-in-command, Silas Cadwell, board Stoker's ship, the Adamantium.
And Stoker's immediately suspicious. She believes Lawrence is only there to whip this claim right out from under me.
Which confirms that intense cutthroat rivalry that defines independent mining in this sector.
The source material also hints at a complex, unresolved personal history between Stoker and Lawrence, which just layers more distrust on top of their professional enmity.
So while Stoker and Lawrence are sparring over mining rights and personal grievances, the Doctor uncovers the true cosmic nature of the threat.
Right. He does it by observing Silas Cadwell. Cadwell initially feigns this kind of bureaucratic disinterest, but the Doctor spots a hidden, encrypted file on his terminal.
A file called the Dark.
And this is the pivot point for the entire narrative. The conflict shifts completely. It's no longer about bioengineering. It's about cosmic reality.
Cadwell eventually reveals the truth.
He does. The Dark is not merely an ancient god or some localized Akoshemon demon. It is the remnant of the void that existed before the Big Bang.
A cavity in time and space that was shredded, but not destroyed, when our universe began. I mean, think about that for a second.
Yeah.
We are dealing with an entity that is fundamentally a scar in reality. It's sheer nothingness, primal chaos, made manifest, but trapped in our reality.
And it eventually reformed, coalesced, on the notorious planet Akoshemon, turning that world into the perpetually toxic, destructive place we see hanging in the void.
But Cadwell reveals a lineage of heroism. His own ancestors, a band of space explorers, they battled this evil entity 1,000 years ago.
But they couldn't destroy it entirely. They managed to defeat its physical form, reducing it to ashes, and burying those ashes in a deep, isolated crypt within the moon.
The very chamber the miners stumbled upon.
The very one. And crucially, Cadwell confirms the Dark's mind survived, trapped and waiting within those scattered remnants.
And this finally provides the definitive answer to the Bloodhunter's relentless collection.
The Dark required bloods, specifically living humanoid blood, to act as a kind of glue, a binding agent, to reconstitute the ashes and reform a new, living physical body.
So the Bloodhunter was just the syringe.
Exactly. It was created by Oldman, using Akoshemon DNA, for the sole horrific purpose of collecting the necessary physical components to free a cosmic horror.
The genetic science that was meant to achieve immortality became the architecture for the Dark's resurrection.
And this recontextualizes Oldman's folly. It wasn't just a random mistake. The Dark's mind, trapped in that crypt, likely psychically influenced Garandel and Oldman. It probably planted the idea of using the life-imbuing Akoshemon DNA to create a collector.
So the Dark subtly engineered his own escape, using human hubris and ambition as its tools.
Then Cadwell's true motive is laid bare. His feigned disinterest was a cover. He came to the moon on a sacred family mission, an inheritance, a fantastic duty.
To complete his ancestors' work and destroy the Dark forever.
He even brought specialized, illegal weaponry for the task. The DSA automatic. It fires super-dense dwarf star alloy rounds, designed explicitly to rip apart powerful, resilient physical entities.
So Cadwell, the supposed corporate lackey, is actually a secret warrior dedicated to this ancient cosmic duty.
His only error was relying on Nyssa, who was already a psychic conduit, to lead him to the crypt.
And that sets the stage for our final section, a massive confrontation that relies on exploiting a profound, almost absurd physical flaw. So let's move into section 4. The final confrontation and the Dark's fatal flaw.
The confrontation begins when Nyssa, who is momentarily under the Dark's thrall, leads Cadwell to the crypt.
Cadwell is incapacitated for a moment when Nyssa resists the psychic control, and that gives the Dark the opening it needs.
It uses the collected human blood, the essence of Jael, Nick, Jim, and the others, and the Dark fully resurrects.
He takes on a tall, man-like corporeal existence, but its physical manifestation requires an immediate, specific environmental adaptation.
It drains all the available light energy from the cavern. The Doctor observes it as photon assimilation, and it plunges the area into absolute perfect darkness.
That process confirms a critical physical limitation. The dark can only maintain its corporeal existence at full power in absolute darkness.
It's a creature of the void. It has to replicate the void in its immediate vicinity. But this physical existence comes at an enormous, unforeseen cost. The fatal weakness the Doctor is searching for.
He realizes the loophole. By incorporating that cocktail of human blood, which included Professor Oldman's DNA, the dark became subject to the physical laws and biological needs of the components it absorbed.
It inherited Ravis Oldman's dependency, his addiction, to neuroelectron.
The irony is, it's frankly astounding. The remnant of the pre-Big Bang void, a cosmic concept of chaos and nothingness, is now physiologically dependent on a mundane, synthesized antipsychotic drug.
The universe's oldest evil is now an addict.
And it craves total access to the TARDIS, to all of time and space, but at this critical moment, its physiological dependency is greater than its cosmic ambition.
It wants the drug more than it wants to conquer the universe.
And this is the opening the Doctor needs. He realizes that while he can't fight this cosmic entity physically, he can exploit its acquired chemical dependency.
He uses an empty neuroelectron injector as a distraction, as bait for the dark. But its true target is the Bloodhunter, which is also manifested to protect its master.
And the Doctor, having saved one single dose of the stabilizer, stabs the Bloodhunter with the neuroelectron.
The resulting climax is, it's a horrifying display of internal conflict. The Bloodhunter, now injected, staggers back, its system scrambled by the intense dose.
And the dark, maddened by the sudden proximity of the drug it desperately craves, immediately surges forward. It drops its focus on universal domination just to acquire the fix.
The Bloodhunter, which is designed only to suck blood, instinctively latches onto the dark's newly formed body. The two creations of Akoshemon's evil, the scientific folly and the mythological entity, they frenzy. They fight each other for the neuroelectron.
It's a terrifying, desperate spectacle of cannibalistic violence.
Until the dark, in its rage, literally tears the Bloodhunter in half.
The Doctor's strategy is confirmed. He forced the cosmic entity to sacrifice its own loyal servant for a dose of a synthesized drug. It proved, beyond a doubt, that its physical existence rendered it vulnerable.
It lost its cosmic immunity the moment it tried to manifest in our universe.
Unfortunately, the human cost continues to rise even as the dark is briefly incapacitated.
Captain Lawrence dies during the crash of the Adamantium, an event caused by the dark's final psychic influence on the crew as the ship tried to escape.
And Stoker, witnessing the death of the man she loved, the man she was constantly fighting, she's just consumed by grief.
She picks up Cadwell's abandoned DSA automatic. And again, we have to stress the nature of this weapon. Dwarf Star alloy rounds. Munitions designed to be incredibly dense and kinetic, capable of piercing and disrupting extremely resilient targets.
Like the newly physical form of the dark.
Driven by revenge and this final, desperate sense of purpose, Stoker fires the DSA rounds into the dark. And though it's incredibly resilient, it's damaged. Blood gushes from the wounds and it falls back into the crypt pit.
But the Doctor realizes shooting it isn't enough. Since it was reduced to ashes once before, fire is the only way to destroy the original remnants forever.
He uses Stoker's lighter and some oil from a rag to set the pit alight, incinerating the original ashes.
Stoker collapses immediately afterward. She's fatally injured from the fighting, but she manages one final, crucial question to the Doctor.
Has it gone?
Before she smoothly, silently relaxes into oblivion. It is a moment of profound, tragic redemption for a character who is defined by greed.
And that reflection is so critical. The Doctor recognizes that while he failed to save Stoker and Lawrence, the Dark's physical existence demanded the sacrifice of its own immortality.
Its reliance on Oldman's corrupted DNA, and by extension, its addiction to neuroelectron, was the ultimate and necessary downfall of a cosmic evil.
Which perfectly frames our final discussion, connecting all these disparate threads in the outro. The joy of discovery, the cost of knowledge.
Yeah, when you look back at the narrative complexity, it's just astonishing. We started with a desperate, independent mining operation, obsessed with Lexium wealth.
Moved through psychic manipulation, illegal genetic research, aiming for synthetic longevity.
And we ended with a confrontation against a cosmic entity whose ultimate fatal flaw was a drug addiction induced by the remnants of human DNA.
It's a remarkable study in the intersection of motives. Economic, scientific, and existential.
Let's just tally that final human cost one last time because their lives matter so deeply to this story.
Bigagel, Nick, Jim Boyd, Captain Lawrence, and Jill Stoker.
And we can't forget Bunny Chung, who lost his life after losing his arm, all while just trying to get back to his daughter Rosie.
These lives were sacrificed, many due to greed or ignoring spiritual warnings, yet Stoker's final act, using her dying strength to ensure the Dark's destruction, it shows that finding purpose in the face of absolute evil can bring a form of chaotic redemption.
And that theme connects directly back to our listener's mission. The drive for knowledge, whether it was Oldman's reckless research into longevity or Stoker's relentless quest for wealth, can lead to great discovery.
The Lexium, the functional lab, sure. But it inevitably leads to catastrophe when ancient warnings are dismissed and caution is just discarded.
The independent miner's need for speed over due diligence.
The scientist's arrogance over environmental context.
And the warrior's certainty over careful planning. They all contributed to freeing this malevolent, destructive force.
The ultimate lesson here isn't just about cosmic horror. It's that some things are infinitely more valuable than Lexium. And some things, like the spiritual reality of the Vega Vinculum, are truth that should be respected.
The moment humans tried to weaponize or profit from Akoshemon's inherent corruption, they guaranteed their own destruction.
You know, the Doctor's final cold assessment is perhaps the most provocative detail in the entire source material. He notes that the lives lost on the moon, as tragic as they were, amounted to little more than a click of the fingers compared to the billions of lives twisted and ruined by the Dark on Akoshemon over millennia.
So the physical destruction of this one manifestation was a necessary but ultimately small victory in a far larger cosmic war against perpetual entropy.
Exactly. And so you're left with this haunting philosophical question. If the Dark was the remnant of the pre-universe void, a shredded cavity in space and time existing outside the creation of the Big Bang, does its final physical destruction on Akoshemon truly mean the Darkness is gone?
Because if it existed outside of our universe's normal physical laws, a lingering shadow from before existence,
then destroying its body only ends this particular manifestation. The eternal void, the abysmal nothingness it remains. And it's a terrifying thought. Right. The Darkness never truly dies. It simply waits.
It waits for the next opportune moment, the next vulnerable mind, or the next ambitious scientist to find a way to manifest.
The cavity is still there, waiting for its next form and its next victim.
Yeah.
That's something to mull on long after this deep dive is complete.
A perfectly chilling and insightful note to end on. We've covered everything from illegal mining to a cosmic entity's drug dependency. Thank you for guiding us through the void, the vices, and the surprising vulnerability of absolute evil today.
Always a pleasure to help illuminate the dark corners of the universe for you.
And thank you for joining us on the deep dive. We'll see you next time.